Hello book besties, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to discuss all of the books that I read in May. It was actually a pretty good reading month for me, which is a relief because if you watched my previous wrap up, I needed a good reading month. I'm gonna just go ahead and jump right into the books. They are in no particular order, but I am going to save my favorite book for last. One book that I actually read several months ago when it first came out, but realized that I completely forgot to talk to you guys about it, was Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, the newest and latest installment into the Hunger Games. I do not have to say a whole lot about this book. Everyone has been talking about it. Everyone has been absolutely loving this book. So I'm not going to go into like synopsis and all of those details. However, I will say that I loved this book. I'm not including it in like the May wrap up books, or this one would be my favorite, but I did just want to make sure that I mentioned that I did read this book. I gave it 5 stars. I literally cannot wait to see this specific book come to life on the big screen later this year. Getting Haymitch's story was everything that our little Hunger Games hearts needed. I always knew that I loved him. I always knew I had a soft spot for him. I loved how the glimpses of his character we got in the original trilogy were really brought to life through his story. We finally got the truth of who he is deep down and his heart for people and how much he's willing to sacrifice himself. This story gutted me. It completely broke my heart over and over again. This one was very reminiscent of the original book. I loved that about it, that it opened with a reaping, went back into the Hunger Games trials, but gave us a lot of history of not only Haymitch's story, but multiple characters. Every time that a character I recognized came out, I was just like, I know them, and it was just so fun. If you are a Hunger Games fan and you haven't read this one yet, like, stop sleeping, get on it. It's so good. And if you have not read Hunger Games at all yet, like, literally, what are you doing? A fantasy book that I was so excited to read as soon as I got it was The Rejected King by Courtney Kiesel. I was eager to read another book from her because I absolutely loved her Christmas book that I read last Christmas. I didn't know that she wrote a fantasy or more like dystopian type of story, so I was very excited to pick this one up, but I'm sad to say that it kind of disappointed me. It just didn't feel fleshed out enough. I'm assuming that she wrote this early on in her writing career. I haven't checked, I could be wrong, but based on how it's written, that's just kind of the assumption I have. The premise of the book is the world kind of ended for whatever reason. It really wasn't fleshed out very well. And so now we're in the future and this girl gets hired by the royal family to help the prince find a wife. It's very selection series types of vibes, but even that just fell flat. It really only consisted of their love story, the I like you but I can't be with you trope, and it just felt like the dystopian vibes, the selection vibes, like nothing was brought to life enough. It was super short, super easy to fly through. If you're new to the genre, you might love this book, but it left me wanting so much more and just disappointed in the lack of detail and plot. I think my favorite thing about the book is that the characters were likable. They are both readers, and so they're passing books back and forth. They're actually reading Hunger Games together, which was so fun to experience that with them, but that's about it. So this landed at just a simple 3 stars for me. Another book that I was so excited to read is Murder by Cheesecake, which is Golden Girls inspired. If you are a fan of the Golden Girls TV show and you're like me, you grew up watching that show, loving these characters, then you really should read this book for the vibes. That is what it primarily has going for it. The mystery was not that exciting. There was nothing as far as the plot went that just was awe-inspiring and overly mysterious, but if you're a fan of the Golden Girls, all of the vibes are there. It didn't disappoint in that department. If I didn't know who these characters were, I probably wouldn't have liked the book very much, if I'm being honest, but because I know these characters, it was a really fun time for me. I did listen to the audiobook and that was done so well. The narrator of it really did a pretty good job of speaking like the actual characters from the Golden Girls, and the author, you can tell, is just such a massive fan. It felt like I was watching an episode of the Golden Girls. The characters stayed true to character. I actually googled if the author was like part of the production team for the show or something, but I think she's just a super fan, which is shocking that she was able to write something so spot on. And I really enjoyed my time with it, but it is just like a 3.5 star for me because overall, other than vibes, the story itself was not that exciting. But I'm glad I read it. I was actually filming a whole vlog reading this, and it was gonna be like Golden Girls themed vlog, but that will probably never see the light of day. I just didn't have enough to say about the book to make a whole vlog out of it. So those are my thoughts. One of my favorites that I read in May was The Golden Goal. The book itself is like 4.5 stars. The male character, Shaw, 5 stars. He deserves all the stars. Such a well-written character. Honestly, even the girl in this book was very well written. I flew through it, enjoyed every second of it. The only reason it ended up not being quite 5 stars for me was because the pacing felt a little off. It's an epic slow burn. Friends to lovers. Well, they're more like enemies to lovers. He's brother's best friend. They grew up together and their relationship with each other was always picking on each other, but now she gets hired to work for his hockey team as the physical therapist. They're thrown together. He is really trying to throw all the hints out there that he feels a certain way towards her, and she is just like not having it. And it was such a good time. The slow burn was perfectly done, but then it just felt really rushed at the end, which is what kind of threw me off. However, the guy group in this book, like Shaw and all of his buddies, they would get on the phone or gaming with each other. I was living for those moments. Their conversations were so funny. And being that this is the first book in a series of sports romance, we get each of the guys' specific love story, and they all do different sports. I am so eager to continue in this series. Plus, these are closed door rom-com, but it didn't lack any of the swoon, which to me is so good. And I finally finished Misttor. Do I have any clue how to possibly explain this book? No. In fact, I tried to include this book in my previous wrap-up and I just was fumbling all over my words. I could not figure out how to explain this one, and I was like, forget it. I took it out of that video. I was like, we'll try again next month. So here I am trying again. It's really hard to explain. It is a fantasy, not romantasy. There's a tiny bit of romance, so if that's what you're looking for, this isn't it. It is definitely more like that sci-fi. Certain people have abilities. I definitely was feeling like I wanted more plot, and we got it at the end, and I am eager to read book 2 because of it, but I didn't love this as much as I'd hoped I would, as much as I've seen other people love it. There was never a moment that I wanted to DNF it. I just never felt so sucked into it until 75% in, and that is just frustrating to me. But if you like world building and fantasy without heavy romance that has some betrayal and violence and mystery and powers, then this is like a perfect book for you. And I feel like I still sat on this for a month and cannot figure out how to explain this book, so take it for what it was. I'm probably one of the last people to ever read this one anyways, so you already know what it's about, and I'm just overthinking it. And with my Patreon in May, we read The Magic of Lemonrop Pie. This book was so sweet. It was wholesome. It had me thinking about life. You're following Lolly, who is pretty disappointed with the way her life has turned out, and her aunt gives her 3 magic lemon drops that have the power to take her for one night as she sleeps to another life, as if one of her other dreams or another thing she imagines and wishes her life would have been like, it'll take her there so she can experience that. And it was really a story of realizing that if you trade one thing in your life for another, first of all, the grass isn't always greener. Second of all, you're sacrificing other things that maybe wouldn't have been worth it anyways. No matter where she went in life, there was still hardship and grief, and none of it was perfect. And I really appreciate that type of a story that makes us pause and appreciate our own lives and realize that we simply just have the power to make our moments, our life, our story, what we want it to be. This isn't a romance. However, she is hung up on a guy like the whole time, which the people who did not enjoy the book in my Patreon, that was what frustrated them, was like, girl, just get over him. Like, why can't you just move on? It didn't personally bother me, and it all kind of comes full circle. Needless to say, I really enjoyed this book. It was like 4.5 stars for me, and I'm really glad I read it, and I'd really like to try another book by this author. And guys, I finally read Out on a Limb. This is one that I actually took off my TBR, and then so many people commented and were like, no, you have to read that book. I have seen most people, many people, give this 5 stars. Now, I'm gonna open my thoughts with what I didn't like about the book, but please bear with me because, spoiler, it turns out alright. If it was not for all of you, I would have DNF'd the book. There's quite a bit of language, and I just personally do not like a lot of language in my romance or rom-coms or really anything other than fantasy. For whatever reason, I can understand, overlook, kind of not even notice language in fantasy, but when it's like placed in a romance, it just really stands out to me. And that was removing me from the story quite a bit. And the way this book opens is not my jam. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but right out the gate, it was like, honestly, if I didn't know how many people love it, I would have 100% DNF'd this book. So if you are going into it, take my word for it to push past the beginning, because it definitely turned out to be a great one. I still was frustrated by certain things throughout it, so it was not 5 stars for me. Sorry to say. But if you don't know, really quickly, it's Winifred and Beau, and they both have like a limb disability. So her hand, she was born with a really small hand, and then he had to amputate his leg for reasons I'm not gonna spoil. And now they're navigating becoming parents together. What was the best part for me was, of course, their love story was adorable. The way that it ended was so precious and so beautiful. I was very thankful for how the book turned out. But the character development that our girl Win went through, accepting herself, loving herself, becoming a mom, it was just beautiful. I'm always here for a really good character development. And even out the gate, they almost immediately like each other, and normally that would be like insta-lovey to me, but it was written perfectly in this. It actually reminded me of my husband and myself when we met, and just that instant connection, which is funny why I don't like it as much when it's not done good in books, because it is some people's reality. But this book did it so well. It really did so much of the story well. I just couldn't give it 5 stars for the other miscellaneous things. But thank you guys for pushing me to read it. I'm glad I did. I just wish I loved it as much as everyone else did. Okay, so the last 2 books, it was really hard for me to decide which one would be like the favorite of the month, but I'm certain I made the right choice. But know that this book that I'm about to show you was like a very close runner-up. I really loved this one, and that is The Letter Tree by Rachel Fordham. And I can hear my friend Keisha screaming from 4 hours away because this is her favorite book. She is 100% the inspo for why I read this book. She bought me the book. I waited an entire year to finally pick it up, but the timing was right. Sometimes you gotta wait till you're in the mood for a certain type of story, because I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much as I did if I read it when I wasn't really in the mood. But I'm so glad I read it. This story is so beautiful and so timeless, and had multiple reasons why I absolutely loved it. It was like 4.75 stars for me, like just shy of 5 stars. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because it didn't quite give me that 5-star feeling. This story is set in the 1920s, which I'm learning is a favorite period for me to read about. And these 2 people have been passing letters through a tree, a hole in a tree, for years and years. But the tree is in the zoo, so also the animal lover in me was so here for this story. I just really loved how much this book was just timeless and put me in this beautiful setting with these characters and the historical fiction in times of life. Right out the gate from the beginning, you're immediately gripped in this mystery of like what happened to her mom and why these families are such deep rivals. And then our male and our female are both navigating like their own coming of age and into adulthood and what they're gonna choose for themselves apart from like the hate that they've been raised in. There's 2 plot lines of mystery, there's letter writing, and it's just this precious love story. It was just so wholesome, so sweet, so romantic, and I just completely recommend it if you haven't tried this book yet and you like historical fiction, wholesome romance. And my favorite book of May was Of Love and Treason. This book is one that I picked up simply because Francine Rivers, who is my favorite author, blurbed it, and I can see why. It is very reminiscent of her writing style. This is historical fiction. It is faith-based historical fiction, more accurately, and you're following this girl Iris who lives in Rome. She is actually blind from an injury and she meets Valentine, and the story is inspired by the actual story of Valentine, like who Valentine was, where like Valentine's Day got its start. In full transparency, because I like to be completely honest with you guys, I started the book a year ago and made it about 70 pages in and never felt fully gripped, but then I just wanted to finish it, and so I picked it back up and I couldn't put it down. Again, I think it was just that I needed to be in the mood for this story, and it really started to pick up, and I'm so glad I read it. Obviously, it ended up being a favorite. It's another really beautiful story, really impactful about why bad things happen to seemingly good people and how God is in the midst of it all. So like the message was just powerful, but even our strong characters like Valentine had awesome banter with other characters, which really helped me feel like they were human. Sometimes with historical fiction there can be this disconnect. It's like all serious all the time. I loved and appreciated how this author wrote these characters and really humanized them with just real life banter and fun. This guy was like literally breaking the law to continue to marry people. His life is being threatened, and yet because of his faith, his personality never wavered. Like, he was a fun time and kind and funny, and I literally loved that about this story. And then miracles are happening, people are coming to faith because of circumstances they can't deny. It was just such a beautiful story. If you don't mind reading historical fiction and you are a person of faith, I don't think you should skip this one. I think that you should definitely try it. I think you will be inspired and really enjoy it. And that's a wrap on my May wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video and you haven't hit subscribe yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button and sticking around. I hope that your May books were awesome and that your summer has been off to a really great start. I will see you guys in the next video. Go read a book.